and right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis.
Here comes the ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Here comes the ready or not. How you like me now? I say, here comes the boom, ready or not. Here comes the boys from the south. Boom, here comes the boom, ready or not. How you like me now?
You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
You are watching live to a very special edition of Rally Round the Natty. My name is Santori Miles. We got Cincy James. We got Greg Luther. And we have a very special guest that we are very privileged to have on today, Mr. Reggie Williams. How you doing today, Mr. Williams?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Looking forward to this show.
All right. Awesome. So today's probably just going to be a little bit of a round-robin discussion. We've all got a few questions. If it's okay, would like to start first on behalf of my father, who can't be here tonight. It is his wedding anniversary, so they're hanging out in Disney World right now. But the one of the big questions that my dad wanted to ask, because he was such a very, very big Forrest Gregg fan. Obviously, Super Bowl 16 down at halftime. Well, was there anything of a halftime speech, or what did Forrest Gregg say to y'all to rally the troops, if anything?
You know, that story of halftime in Super Bowl 16 would have best been told if we had won the game. And, you know, as in all things, because people would have asked that question. You know, why did you come out of the locker room so fired up? Well, the reality is, for those that were in that locker room, when Forrest got ready to come to the front of the locker room to address the team, he was thinking, he was preparing, he's trying to, you know, he had this real pregnant pause. And in that pregnant pause, of all people, myself, I jumped in. And basically, I sort of expressed the fact that I myself had played poorly in the first half, and that this second half was going to be a different story, and that I expected the offense to play like they played all year long, that Kenny Anderson was going to be the most valuable player, that Anthony Munoz was going to drive his man down the field, and they were going to put that ball in the end zone, and I myself was not going to miss any more tackles. And honestly, you know, it was just off the cuff. It was how I was feeling. You know, I was in Pontiac, which is just 40 miles from my hometown of Flint, Michigan. The San Francisco 49ers had a high school teammate of mine, Ricky Patton, who was the starting running back. It's the first and only time the two high school teammates faced off against each other, and the winner was going to go home a champion, and the loser couldn't go home. So that was my attitude at halftime. And Forrest slapped me on the back as we all ran out of the locker room. He didn't really say anything at halftime. And, you know, he had shown leadership the 2 weeks before because we had played the coldest game in NFL history at 59 degrees below zero. And the only colder game was when he played, you know, in the Ice Bowl. And so he had so much credibility as a head coach that, you know, his actions always spoke louder than his words.
That's amazing. I love that. Wow. It wasn't even Forrest Gregg. It was our very own Reggie Williams right here. That's amazing. I'll go ahead and go. I'll just jump on to another question here. So we just got done with the NFL draft. We picked up a whole bunch of people. But what I want to know is, what was the draft process like for you coming out of Dartmouth? I know you were a third-round guy. What was it like for you? I know there wasn't a whole bunch of hubbub, I guess, about it back then, but give us your take on the NFL draft for you.
No, I mean, the draft was a completely different animal when I was coming out of Dartmouth. You know, there was no combine, number one. You know, the scouts and the coaches would come to you. They worked me out in our indoor facility at Dartmouth College. On the day of the draft, I had already graduated 2 terms early from Dartmouth, so I was living in White Plains, New York, at a YMCA of all things, and I was working at a local high school as an assistant wrestling coach and basically hall monitor or security. And on the day of the draft, I was sick as could be. I was in my own room, and the YMCA. This was old school telephone system, and at that time, a team would have to call into the switchboard, and then the switchboard would relay the call up to the room. You couldn't call out because of the YMCA, and so the first call I got was from the Toronto team, which had drafted me in the first round. The head scout there was J.I. Albrecht, and he called me before the Bengals could call me, and he immediately raised his offer. I had done a trip to Toronto. It was a great time. Their big star at the time was USC running back Anthony Davis, and he took me around Toronto in his Rolls Royce, and it was all big time. And the Toronto Argonauts ended up offering me 5 times as much money as the Cincinnati Bengals. Whoa. And so you had to know that I was desperate to be an NFL player. That's where all my dreams were as I was growing up. My favorite player was Jim Brown. I actually was a Cleveland Brown fan growing up because my father was a Cleveland Brown fan. Ooh. So as J.I. Albrecht is trying to convince me to take an offer of $500,000 and not even listen to whatever the Bengals going to say, the person from the switchboard came up to my room, pounded on my door, and said, "You have another phone call." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you have another phone call. You have to get off that line." So I excused myself from the phone line, and I think the person that talked to me was Pete Brown, and he called to tell me they had drafted me in the 3rd round, that they were extremely excited about welcoming me to the team. But the reality is that year in 1976, the Bengals had 2 first-round draft choices, 2 second-round draft choices, and 2 third-round draft choices. And I was the second of the third-round draft choices. I was really the number 6 pick. So you didn't go into camp with a lot of, your chest sticking out because, so many players are behind me. There were so many players in front of me. That was the year that Archie Griffin was the number 2 choice of the Bengals. Billy Brooks was the number 1 choice. And Glenn Bujnak was the first choice in the second round. And then they got a kicker from Penn State, Chris. I can't remember his last name, but Chris was drafted ahead of me. And then Danny Reese, a defensive back from USC, and then me. And so, I know that you were going to ask a question about Mike Brown. Well, that was the first time I met Mike Brown, which was when I came into town. And so I guess my question to Mike Brown was, how much did he have to convince the organization to take a chance on a fellow Dartmouth grad? Okay. Mike actually had the record at Dartmouth College, because he was a starting quarterback at Dartmouth. Okay, and so he had a record that still existed when I was playing, and maybe still exists to this day. And the record was for the most points scored for the least yardage, which means that obviously he had a bunch of quarterback sneaks. Okay, but it's a record nonetheless. So, I was very proud to be drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals. The 3rd round was like the least roundage that was, respectable, being a first round draft choice in the Canadian Football League. And it gave me a whole bunch of confidence. And, Glenn Bujnak ended up being my rookie camp roommate. I can remember my first day walking into the dormitory, and there was no one else in the room, but there was these big giant shoes. I mean, the biggest shoes I had ever seen. I mean, I think they're like size 17 or something like that. And they were Glenn Bujnak shoes. He was in the bathroom. And I say, man, what kind of mountain of a man is in this room? I mean, Dartmouth had some good sized players, but
Right.
nothing like Glenn Bujnak's feet.
That's awesome.
Good.
Greg, go ahead with one of yours, bud.
Okay, so Paul Brown, I think everybody wants to know, what was Paul Brown like? We always see pictures of him standing on the sideline with that trench coat and the fedora. What was just Paul Brown like as a person and a coach?
Well, my rookie year was his rookie year as a full-time general manager of the team. So he was off the sideline.
Okay.
So I heard all kind of stories about Paul Brown as a coach. There were some pretty scary stories. There was one story about him cutting a player at halftime. Now, can you imagine? What goes in a rookie's mind that you could possibly get cut at halftime, have to find your own way home. I mean, so he had this aura about him, but we respected him so much because, as I mentioned before, I grew up a Cleveland Brown fan. I therefore was a Paul Brown fan. So I knew of the amount of success that he had on the sideline. I knew he was known for wearing those real snappy fedoras, nice little hat, and he was always such a gentleman. We got along very, very well in our relationship. And I remember when I was awarded the NFL Man of the Year, and we did I got a poster made up, a piece of artwork made up, and I gave one to Paul Brown, and he even hung it in his office for at least a day or two. But probably the biggest compliment that I got from him was the first time that I had a chance to really play for the Cincinnati Bengals. And that was my rookie year, and we were playing Cleveland in Cleveland. And the day before the game, Ron Pritchard, the starting right outside linebacker, all of a sudden suffered a knee injury in the walk-through practice. Now, I had been playing at left outside linebacker behind Bo Harris. I had not done any work at right outside linebacker since high school. I played middle linebacker in college. And they decided to start Glenn Cameron, who was the previous year's first-round draft choice at linebacker, but he was a middle linebacker. And so when he started the game, the one thing that he could not do, being a middle linebacker, was tackle Greg Pruitt in the open field. They would just throw little pop passes to Greg, and Greg would put his juke on, and he'd be past Glenn Cameron in a second. Then it was up to Ken Riley to get him down. And so in the second quarter, they decided to take a chance, and they put me in the game. They had nothing to lose. We were down by a touchdown or so, and I had really improved my open field tackling from when I played at Dartmouth. And I was able to tackle Greg Pruitt in the opening stanza. I was able to put pressure on their quarterback. I was able to make a lot of plays. I must have made about 10 tackles. I ended up leading the team in tackles my rookie year. But after that game, when I came on the bus and Paul Brown was already there, he got halfway out of his seat and shook my hand and said that was a great game. And I started from that game for the rest of my 14-year career. And so I felt empowered by Paul Brown to be the player that they drafted me to be.
All right.
Jeez, that's
Wow.
what a story.
I've got kind of a two-part question. I'm going to take this one back to 1971 here. We're going to go back to some high school days. Coach Christensen, what was he like?
Dar Christensen. His first year, he turned around Flint Southwestern football. First, let me say this, okay? And back in those days, before the water crisis and everything, Flint, Michigan was thriving. You know, as a great town. I mean, there were a bunch of General Motors operating. The largest Buick factory in the world was in Flint, Michigan. And the previous coach, Coach Jobson, was able to get us to a 3-6 record. And they fired him, and in comes Dar Christensen. And that year, we went 8-1. And the only game they lost was the only game I missed. I was out with pneumonia, and I just couldn't play. I had to stay at home, and we lost to Midland by a score of 6-0. And so, but the rest of the year, I played outside linebacker, but I had previously, played backup fullback, and I had the best yards per carry on the team. And they could have used me since we didn't score a single point. But the thing that I will remember most of all about Dar Christensen, is the fact that I wanted to go to Michigan. I had worked my whole lifetime to get grades that would allow me to get a full academic scholarship to Michigan. And I remember Bo Schembechler came to my high school, Flint Southwestern, and Dar Christensen called me to his office to meet, Bo. And when Bo talked to me, he said, "Look, son, if you decide to come to the University of Michigan, do me a favor. Don't come out for my football team because you're just not good enough." And that shocked me. Okay. And Dar Christensen didn't defend me. He didn't stand up for me at all. And I went home and told my dad about it. My dad said, "Look, I will get another job." I had already been admitted to Dartmouth. And so that's how I ended up at Dartmouth College. And so 4 years later, when I'm now a Kodak All-American, okay, I run into Dar Christensen. Run into Bo Schembechler, somewhere. And I told him who I was, and I told him what he told me to my face. And he just looked at me and said, "Well, congratulations. Everybody makes mistakes." I say he only almost ruined my life, but for him it was just another mistake.
What are you gonna
Yeah, fantastic. The only other thing I wanted to ask about 71 is looked like you guys had a big rival, Bay City Central. Is that correct?
Bay City Central was the dominant state power. They were in our conference, but they were, had a bunch of big corn-fed players.
Okay.
They were by far had the biggest offensive line. And I remember I also wrestled, and only wrestled for 1 year, my senior year, and had to wrestle. I wrestled heavyweight because I didn't want to lose any weight. And so I was about 205 as a heavyweight wrestler, and ended up being the conference champion. And I had to beat the wrestler from Bay City. But the number one heavyweight that I had to defeat was from my crosstown rivalry, Flint Central. And he was Big George Washington. I mean, that was his nickname, even then, Big George. And he ended up going to Minnesota and ultimately became all Big Ten as a defensive tackle, and also was the Big Ten Ivy League heavyweight wrestling champion. So I was the heavyweight wrestling champion in the Ivy League. So we should have faced off. We should have had an all Flint, Michigan, death match. But yeah, I really do value those memories. Flint Southwestern, just to give you some comparison, we graduated about 1,000 seniors that year. And there were 4 major high schools, and all of them graduated 1,000 seniors. And then there was another Catholic high school, Flint Powers, that graduated 1,000 seniors. So, I mean, sports was huge. Right now, though, in Flint, Michigan, there's only one high school. And that one remaining high school is Flint Southwestern, and they're only graduating 200 students. It's amazing how much change has occurred in Flint, Michigan since I was playing there.
Wow.
I see somebody in the background saying Corey.
Yeah, my looks like my dad was able to scrape some time and come on. I would really like you to meet him. He was one of the driving forces for trying to get you on here. So Mr. Williams, this is my father. Goes by Bengal Dad on Twitter. His name is Dan.
What's up, Bengal Dad? How you doing?
Reggie Williams, this is flipping awesome. How are you?
I'm doing good. You're down here. You're down here in Orlando, I understand.
Yeah, I'm at Disney World. I couldn't make it to Wide World Disney to take a picture of myself by the sign. Thought that'd been really cool to do that, but I couldn't get there quick enough.
That would have been cool. Wide World of Sports is my baby,
I know it is. I still don't know how you got involved with that. Has anybody asked you that question yet?
Not yet.
How did that all come together?
Well, I was working for the National Football League as director of special events and community service for Super Bowl 27. It was the game where Dallas destroyed Buffalo. And I was in that position because that was the year of the Rodney King riots. And the Super Bowl was in just north of LA in Pasadena. And so the NFL felt like they had a need to show their commitment to address community unrest. And it just wasn't a place where high rollers flew at a time with their luxury jets and their limos, had big parties and left. And so I came up with this concept called NFL Youth Education Town. And we built it right on the same corner where the Rodney King riots started. It was a multifaceted education and recreational facility for the most at-risk kids in Compton. And to ensure that all these kids had all the resources that they needed to be successful in life. And as I was going around to different corporations trying to get sponsorship, one of the corporations I went to was Disney. And at that time, one of my Dartmouth classmates was now, at that time, his name was Michael Montgomery. He was the treasurer of Disney. So he invited me to lunch, and I was going to make my pitch to him. And as I'm in the executive dining room talking to him, Michael Eisner came over to my table and started to talk to me. And little do people know that he had 2 sons that graduated from Dartmouth. And so he felt he knew me. And he came over to my table and he told me that the Disney company had just bought the Mighty Ducks and that they were interested in getting into sports. And he said, we have all this land at Walt Disney World. What would you do? Just like that. And I sat back and said, I had just already built, NFL Youth Education Town. So I knew conceptually, that what you want to build is something that kids don't already have. Okay. And so that's where the whole idea of building a place that was very similar to Flint, Michigan, where I grew up. In Flint, even though there were 4 or 5 major high schools, we all played at the same central stadium called Atwood Stadium. It was a great stadium. It was one of the first stadiums in the country that had AstroTurf. It sat about 10,000 people. When Martin Luther King or John Fitzgerald Kennedy came to town to speak, they would speak at Atwood Stadium. And so my concept in conceptualizing about what Disney should do is that they should be the Atwood Stadium of the sports world for kids. The kids could come and meet from Maine to Florida to California, from Michigan. They all had a central proving grounds, and everyone could compete for the title. But even if they lost, they were still at the happiest place on earth. And that's the one. That's the one thing that I really, took away from my 2 Super Bowl experiences. We had great seasons. We were the best, records in Cincinnati Bengal history. But when we lost the big game, the Super Bowl, it was like we had lost everything. And, there's got to be some higher ground than losing everything for kids. And so in that respect, that's why Wide World of Sports was something I fought hard for. It got turned down for funding several times. But when it finally got approved and we opened it, it immediately became the #1 sports youth complex in the world. And even later, has put its mark in the sports world because they hosted the NBA championships during the pandemic, during the bubble.
Yep.
So that's something that totally exceeded my expectations of what, a simple lunch meeting could, materialize to be.
Well, that is fantastic. I do not want to dominate what's going on with you guys right now. I've got a dinner reservation here in about 5 minutes. If I don't make it, I'll probably have a really bad rest of my stay here at Disney. So I better go make the dinner reservation. But I'm glad you very, very happy that you could make it on the show, Reggie. It's been a pleasure meeting you. Loved watching you for all the years. You were definitely a cornerstone of that team, and you were kind of the fire behind that defense. So it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate you being such a great fan for so long, Bingo Dad. And you were around then when we first started the Who Day chant.
Oh yeah,
because that started in '81. Yep. So the fans have been fabulous. I mean, were you at the Freezer Bowl?
I truly was at the Freezer Bowl with my father. I was there.
Yes. And so while a lot of people have said they were there, I believe you were there. Okay.
I was section 343.
Well, thank you for being there. I tell you what, that home crowd that day, even though it was probably 10,000 less total, they made so much noise. They were so much in our corner that there was no way we were going to lose.
Right. It's a game I'll never forget.
Well, thanks for coming. You have a great dinner, okay?
All right. Thank you, Reggie. See you guys.
See you, Bengal Dad.
Bengal Day. That was good timing.
Wow. Yeah, fantastic.
It was basically his turn.
I'm going to say, yeah.
Oh, good. We do have a few comments in the chat. After what you just spoke about with the wide world of sports, Ken wanted to say how proud Paul Brown would be knowing another ex-Bengal doing great things for the next generation. There's a lot of other stuff in the chat saying that kind of stuff. He also said that you were one of his favorite Bengals that he followed around Wilmington in training camp.
Wilmington was a special place. I mean, in both a good and a bad way. Okay. I mean, number one, it was very Spartan. I mean, there were no amenities. If you wanted amenities, you had to bring your amenities. And so, like I said, that my first year, I'm with Glenn Bujnak, and as rookies, I think he brought a fan, put a fan in the window, but basically, it was real Spartan condition. Well, the next year, I insisted on not wanting a fan or air conditioning. I'm getting my mind right, to be the guy that's got to be that intimidating linebacker on defense. So I slept on the floor, the hard floor, and I couldn't get a roommate. So I didn't have any roommate for the rest of my NFL career because no one else wanted to endure the hot, Wilmington weather. And but it really was for me, part of that transformation. I was a psych major at Dartmouth. And so part of my whole mentality was to really become this intimidating crazy man. Okay. You when you break the huddle, you'd want that person, whomever they are, that's going to line up across from you on the line of scrimmage to have a little fear. And I had this wild, crazy look, through my face mask. I'd get right up in a tight end's face, and it was on. So once I snapped my chin strap, I was a completely different person. It was like going from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde. And so
Well, speaking of that kind of stuff, do you see any similarities between the linebacker rooms that you had with the Bengals to the guys we have now, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, Marcus Bailey, Joe Bocci, all these guys?
Oh, I really like our two starting linebackers. I love Logan Wilson, and I love Jermaine Pratt. It's really kind of coincidental that Logan Wilson, I think he wears 55, which is Jim LeClair's number.
Oh.
So Jim LeClair was the guy that of all the Bengal players, he's the one that really emulated how a linebacker should play. And it was just one preseason game, and we're on goal line, and the ball is, a rushing play away from me. So I get to run from the backside, and I get to see everything in front of me. And Jimmy LeClair is in the middle of two guys trying to hit him, screaming at the top of his lungs, just banging. I said, wow, this man's gone crazy on them. And I was like, wow, I want to play like Jim LeClair. And, and I did. And we became, great teammates, and we sort of fed off each other in much the same way that Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson feed off of each other. In between game, they each vie for who's going to make the big play, who's going to be most ready. And so I think that they have the championship pedigree. They were only, one series away from already winning the Super Bowl. This team, for all that I am, nostalgic about the two Super Bowl teams that I played on, this current roster is the best competing Cincinnati Bengal team in Cincinnati Bengal history. And the fans of both those players deserve a Super Bowl championship. So that's what we're all waiting for. Okay, so because both the Super Bowls that I played in were 7 years apart. In our first Super Bowl, we came back and had a strong year in 1982, but that was a strike year where ownership held the players out, and we only played 9 total games and got into the playoffs, but really played poorly against the New York Jets. And after that, the team just really went downhill, and they made a number of coaching changes. until a few years later, Sam Weiss came in and really turned the fortunes around.
Greg, go ahead. I know you had another question.
Okay, so tell me about. So a family friend of mine wanted to ask this question. Give us a story about Howie Kernick. I know he was a great player for the Bearcats, and his career was a bit short and all that. But do you have any Howie Kernick stories?
Howie Kernick is in the same class of linebackers as Brian Pillman. Okay, those unique characters that find their way into your locker room. And the team, is really ready for them to make an indelible difference. And Howie Kernick did. We knew he was a gung ho player. From Cincinnati, University of Cincinnati, and he was mostly a special teams player for us. But he got a chance to play, and he made some big plays for us on special teams. But the thing I used to always notice about Howie was he always just barely made it on time to practice. Okay, and in that respect, he never used to comb his hair, so he used to have the wildest hairdos when he'd come in the morning, and so that's basically how I got his nickname. So his name was Howie, so I turned it to Zawdu. Okay, instead of a hairdo, it was a Zawdu. That's what I called his hairdo. And it was impressive about how matted it was on one side and stick up on the other side. So it was pretty amazing. I'll tell you one story that also about Brian Pillman. For those of you who don't know, Brian Pillman, obviously became a wrestler. And he was a little, he was a little insane himself. And I remember one time he proudly showed off to all the other linebackers the biggest zit I had never ever seen in my life underneath his arm. And I was like, golly, I mean, it's something you'll never forget. I guarantee you.
Well, I guess that means that Brian Pillman was as crazy as he's saying.
Yes. Oh my God.
He was.
Reg, this is just so. These stories are just so incredible. This is just awesome. I have to say. Oh my gosh.
Santori, I think you got something cooking over there.
Yeah. Kind of switching back to your playing days with the Bengals. Obviously, we finally get to see Ken Riley get enshrined this year. Thank God. Took way too long. Well overdue. If I could have a two-parter here, one, what does that mean for you as a teammate and for the Bengals? And the other guy I'm kind of waiting on and hoping for that I wish we get a little bit more play is Lamar Parrish. If you had any thoughts on that as well.
Oh, I have thoughts on both of those individuals. Number one, I played 8 years with Ken Riley. And so I'd like to believe that his 8 years that we played together were his best 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
There was a part of what he had to do as a defensive back that he didn't have to do with me in front of him. He didn't have to make as many tackles. Okay. And I mean that is very important, for a defensive back, because that's how you stay healthy, And so he was a great player. I had not played on the right outside until that Cleveland game. I remember when I came into the huddle, he was the first player that greeted me, slapped me on the butt and said Invictus. Well, Invictus is a poem by William Ernest Henley that Ken Riley and I both knew because we were both members of the same fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. And if you know Invictus, that's sort of the right mindset to not only come into a game and play linebacker, but it's how I sort of modeled, the rest of my career. And just so, I can, we got time to say it, Invictus by William Ernest Henley. out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. There you go.
I'm
Just go
ready to
play.
go run through a wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. Just
I
go
mean-
run the wall.
Wow.
I feel like you've read that once or twice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
I learned.
I could never memorize that. No.
And so I was very, very proud of Ken Riley. I wrote a chapter about him in my book, Resilient by Nature, about how he deserved to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not just based upon the number of interceptions he had. He was second behind me in recovered fumbles. So he had, I think, 12 recovered fumbles. So you add his interceptions of 65 to 12 fumble recoveries, that's 77 times in, 15 years that he turns the ball over to the offense. That's twice every year. I mean, that's just phenomenal achievement. And he was my roommate on all of our away trips.
Mhm.
So every night before an away game, me and Ryler, we would just sit around and just chill. And we were really good friends. He came to my funeral, and I am just thrilled that he is in. My only regret is that he's not alive and able to experience it all himself. His son, Ken Riley, number 2, is doing a great job of representing him. But, Kenny and I talked about, the Hall of Fame a lot of times. I had a chance to read him my chapter that I wrote about him to him on the phone. I went to several of his fundraising golf tournaments, and I was really, really sorry to hear about his demise. Lamar Parrish was the very first defensive player to compliment me on the practice field. And I remember I was on his side, which means he was grooming me to be that linebacker to make his life a lot easier. We were in our 7-on-7 drill. And so the best running back that the Bengals had at the time for catching the ball out of the backfield was Linville Elliott. And so they put Linville Elliott one-on-one with me, and he ran a pass route that was about an 8-yard up and then a quick burst to the outside. And I was able to pop in front of him and get both my hands on the ball for an interception, but I dropped it. And as I dropped the ball, I kicked the ball in disgust with myself. And Lamar Parrish, of all people, said, "It's okay, that was good." He had this real high voice, but I still remember him saying, "You did good, man. That was really good." Okay. So it was my first compliment. So I was really happy for it. But he was an amazing player. He not only was volatile anytime he touched the ball, as on interceptions, but he was our phenomenal punt return specialist, and he made some amazing plays. And he was the one that was so flashy that he's the one that always got the Pro Bowl nominations instead of Ken Riley. But they were a great duo. So we had good bookends on both sides for our defensive backfield. We had Tommy Casanova, who was a great, strong safety on the inside. Then we had Bernard Jackson at free safety then. So we really had a great defense. And, my rookie year, we went 10-4. but that was a time only one wild card team got into the playoffs, and that was a playoff quality team. And I'm sorry that we didn't get there my rookie year.
Well, we've hit the 45-minute mark. Are you okay on time, or you need to?
I'll answer one more question, and then we'll go off to happier pastors. This has been an enjoyable reminiscence of a lot of good questions.
Well, gentlemen, who wants to ask the last question?
I've asked everything I wanted to ask.
Okay, I guess I'll ask this one. I guess the question is, what is the biggest difference in your opinion, Reg, in today's linebackers and when you played? What is, in your opinion, the biggest difference in today's game?
The biggest difference is all of the different defenses that linebackers find themselves playing in. When I was playing linebacker, I basically didn't leave the field. You could get into a mindset that they're going to have to go through me, in order to get into that end zone. And one of the worst memories I have of my entire NFL career is when Dick LeBeau called a defense in Super Bowl 23. It was the first time he started playing. That was the year they started playing the 4-1, where you only had one linebacker in the game. And he took me out of the game in the last 50 seconds of the last drive that Joe Montana drove the field. And it was like a horror film. I mean, I'm sitting there on the sideline. I've been playing all game. I'm having the best game of any Cincinnati Bengal. I had 11 tackles. I had a couple pressures on Joe Montana. I had a sack on Joe Montana. I had a couple pass defenses in the end zone. I mean, it was my 13th year. I wanted to win that game. I wanted to retire. I would have retired after the game as a Super Bowl champion. And right in that last drive, when we got them to a 2nd and 20, they had just committed a holding. He pulled me off the sideline. And when I went to the sideline, I thought maybe he's taking me off for just one play. But I ended up being off the field for the rest of the game. And I just watched the nightmare unfold. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Our defensive backfield just totally fell apart. And that was the one thing that I felt they needed was leadership. I mean, someone had to be, that stalwart anchor in the ground that was unfazed by whatever their offense was doing. And I was that guy, especially given the fact that Tim Krumrie, our other defensive captain, was not in the game because he had broke his leg in the first quarter. So that's a great final question. That's why, I'm really wishing the best for this draft class for the Bengals. One of those players could be the difference, for this team, that one player that can be the difference between ending up in the playoffs and ended up winning a Super Bowl. So with that, hoo day to all.
Thank you so much, Reggie, for coming on. I think
thank you.
We all echo Ken's comment here, number 57 for the Ring of Honor. We'd love to see you get up there someday. But once again, thank you.
Reg,
I just want to be alive when it happens. That's a lesson, from Ken Riley. So, I appreciate your support, but, like I said, I want to be alive to really experience, the thrill of being immortalized at Paycor Stadium. And, there for fans, for every generation of all fans saying, hoo day. All right.
That's right. Hoo day. And I know we've got more questions, and we'll save it for another time. We'll get you back on here.
We'll look forward to it. You guys have a great day, okay?
Hey, Reg, thank you so much for taking the time, Reg. Thanks
for inviting me, Greg. I appreciate it, okay?
I can't thank you. Hoo day.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, that was awesome.
That was
I'm getting laggy over here. I'm freezing.
I mean, the storytelling. I mean, like that was just so incredible. Just hearing the stories. Did you guys not think? I felt like I was in the story when he was telling it. That's how cool it was.
Yeah, it was great. Greg, first off, hats off to you, sir, for thinking about asking him to come on after you were on with him. Jeff on Strawberry Ice.
Let me just ask you guys this. I mean, did you guys ever think like a year ago, like Santori, when you started your show, or like James, when you and I came on, did you guys ever think we'd get to doing something just like this? I mean, this is just what occurs to me all the time.
That's a question for Santori.
We had a pipe dream when Dad and I were first discussing doing this. You know, are we ever going to get any Bengal players on? And I was like, well, it depends what route we go. I said, do you want to be raw, unfiltered, uncut, and be pissed off and, you know, talk down on players when they're playing bad? Because that's going to nip that in the ass right away. Or, you know, are we going to be fair? Because, you know, people can accept fair criticism, but you don't need to be a jerk about it. And, you know, we had a couple episodes where like, yeah, we had some fun. We let it rip. Let's dial it back and let's try. But no, this was this was a step in the right direction for the pipe dream for when we started the show. So this was this was fantastic.
I mean, this was just, I mean, like just the answers that he gave. I mean, like, you know, like, I mean, I'm just speechless after how awesome it was. The whole thing with Disney that he got involved with. I mean, like not even just him as a player, just him as a person. I mean, the stories he would just, I mean, it was just, I'm just speechless how awesome.
Well, and the one thing we didn't mention, which I actually meant to when I was going to introduce him, is he won the Walter Payton Man of the Year. People forget that too.
That is, oh my God.
I mean, you don't get that honor unless you're doing something seriously right.
Yes.
So, and wasn't it the year before the Wizard White? Is there what? I can't remember what the name of the other one was, but he won a Man of the Year 2 years in a row, and then in '87,
like Sports Illustrated Sportsman of the Year.
In '87, Pro Sportsman of the Year.
Well, for you Ohio State fans out there, I'm sure he was very happy. I'm sure all the Ohio State fans were very happy how he got in Bo's face and all that. So the Ohio State fans, I guarantee you, loved hearing that story. Yeah. That was awesome right there. I knew nothing about that, but the Ohio State fans are loving that right now.
There's still a question from Bengal Dad on here, and then I had two other questions, and I'm sure after watching it back, I'll get more.
Oh yeah,
we've got plenty of ammo for another episode. We'll call it.
But it's like I told Greg at the beginning when we were off air. He's like, "Do we have enough questions?" I'm like, "Trust me." So we are going to be able to fill time.
Yeah, I mean, like there's plenty of questions. There's always plenty of questions, and like James just said here, we probably could have him up for part 2 if we ever had time. I mean, that was just oh my God. I mean, Santori, man, I know I've thanked me and James, thank you so many times, but this right here, like this is just one of these interviews right here, man, where I'm just so grateful. I was talking to my uncles and I was talking to some random people walking me like, you mean you're having the Reggie Williams on? I'm like, yeah, and all that. I mean, and I just messaged him on Messenger. He just said, sure, let's do this. I'm like, this Santori, me and James, I don't speak for James, but we just can't thank you enough for just including us.
I mean, I didn't reach out to him. Thank you. I mean, it's all a group effort, man.
Santori, though, you got me on the show, and this is just my way of saying thank you to you for letting me on the show, man. I'm just happy we all got to experience this.
Well, we are. Oh yeah, yes, that's real.
Martha Stewart is on the cover of the swimsuit issue
at 81 years old.
Oh my!
Wait, so this is not a retroactive? Like this is now?
Correct.
Oh no. Okay. Well.
It's tonight's awesome episode with Reggie Williams is brought to you by Three-Way City. This is Three-Way City is bringing the sights and culture of Cincinnati to fashion, named after the traditional Cincinnati-style chili, which I don't know if you can see it, but right there.
I'm here. James, I'm here too.
Yep, we've got it. Our good friend Adam Burnell founded Three-Way City with this in mind. From hats to shirts to jackets, grab a piece of Cincinnati on threewaycity.com today. I got my stuff in the mail today. Got my Don't Cheat, have a 3-way shirt
Yeah.
in Bengals colors. Got my 3-way city hat. Oh, it's looking good now. Woo!
God.
Ready. And also, this episode was brought to you by Birminghorn.
Honey and mead and beer and grilling meats and Delaware and Missouri, Montana.
Do you want me to do it?
2 for 15% off.
Do you-
There you go. 289. Use our code. Birminghorn.
Delaware Rural Small Business of the Year
Yeah, that
is
one.
the award that they just won, on top of all the other awards that they've won. So they're kicking butt. They're taking names.
What's going on? Well, Shelly's unhinged right now.
Shelly, I mean, I found Martha Stewart on. I did find the picture and all that.
Shelly's the centerfold.
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to show it to you guys right now.
What the hell?
Ashley, Santori, what, no, I'm lost here. Ashley, what? Can you explain to Ashley what she's talking about?
What the? Yeah, she's making fun of me for not getting excited for Birminghorn.
Oh, by the way, RYCP513, yes, I will be the Holy Grail on the 19th. Yes, I will be there.
I think his name's Ryan.
Or that's Ryan. Yeah.
Oh, okay, Ryan. Oh, boy.
Well, real quick before we head out of here, are there any
We lost Greg again.
for those of you that don't know, before he comes back in, Santori was kicking Greg out of our chat over and over and over and over and over again.
Like
And we were
8
blaming it
times.
we were blaming it on him touching his phone while he was on the computer.
Oh, God.
Greg, what happened?
We'll discuss this after. I have no idea.
Greg, I'm going to fill you in on a little secret.
What?
Santori's been kicking you out every time.
You son of a! You gonna tell me I created my own account for no reason and all that? You oh my God! Literally.
My trash you the maid, so you bagged him. I'm a savage. Classy, bougie, ratchet. Sassy, moody, nasty.
I kept getting kicked out. I'm like, fine, I'll start my own stupid account with you and all that.
Oh,
I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I restarted my computer. I did everything else. And I'm like, but I was a little suspicious. I'm wait a minute. It just would happen right before the show starts. Why would it happen right before? All of a sudden, it's fine. Santori. I'm like, I was ready. You were so lucky I didn't take my laptop and throw it out the window because I would have made you pay for it.
oh my God.
Yeah, I hate you so bad.
You're going to come out with new cologne.
I mean, I'm glad it was you, Santori, because you're like, Greg, what are you doing, man? I'm like, I don't know. It's making me sign up for StreamYard. I'm ticked off. Fine, I'll sign up for. I was literally thinking, how am I going to do shows from now on? Everything's screwed up here. Santori, I'm so glad it was you at the same
Do
time.
I never laugh or something? Damn.
Santori, I am so glad it was you because I'm like, I thought my computer was messed up.
I told James, I was like, he's probably going to go buy a whole ass new computer now.
I was getting ready to, man. I mean, geez, I'm like, I was about to take this, like,
We were like, he turned his computer off.
but Santori, I was getting suspicious because I was all nervous during the show. I'm like, oh, is it going to quit on me? Is it going to quit on me? And all that. But I'm like, now I'm like thinking, wait a minute. It just so happens it's fine right before the show starts, right when Reggie comes on, and then all of a sudden it starts near the end. Okay, something.
Oh.
He's gonna come out with his own cologne called Big Sauvage. That's gonna be his new cologne.
There goes any monetary value on this episode.
Yeah, don't watch the end of that. But yeah.
We'll edit it. It'll be blurred.
Yeah.
He said, Stranger said, I highly approve of this type of evil.
Oh.
Santori, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but whatever it is.
Nothing. It's just I woke up with a case of the fuck arounds. That's all it was.
No, Santori, I am so happy. Really, I am so relieved it was you the entire time. Because I was really ready to throw out my laptop. I was so confused. I literally thought it was my computer. Or I thought maybe I went over my limit of StreamYard and they're pissed at me or something. I don't know.
No. Oh my God.
Real quick before we head out of here, is there any
brought to you by Betfred?
No. Is there any game now that we know the times and the dates? Is there any game that you're more excited for than another one?
Can we put a pin in this conversation?
Absolutely, we can.
Because the schedule release is my dad's favorite thing of the entire offseason. He likes it significantly more than the draft.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed.
And I think he would really like to talk about that. And that's going
to
give us something else for next week.
I don't think we've got like
we don't have any guest play for next week.
Yeah, we don't have Tim Crumry on next week or anything. So
Santori, man, all I can tell you is paybacks can be painful, man. I'm just telling you. I'm just kidding. Don't get me out.
I'm just sitting in the moderator's seat and the host seat. It's all right.
I kept saying, what the heck was going on here?
I have ultimate control.
Oh, no kidding. Because when James said ultimate control, none of this was happening. I'm like, oh.
I love this one. Santori chose violence.
Yeah. Literally Santori the entire show. I'm like,
yeah.
Literally Santori.
Like Office Space. Greg's going to be out with his fucking baseball bat.
I know. Like, you stupid computer. No, Santori. Literally the whole show, I'm like, okay, looks like we're going good. All right, so nothing's bad's happening. And you're like, Greg, what's going on with your computer? I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my computer. Santori, this would have been perfect April Fool's joke, man, because it would have really worked.
We got another one coming around.
Please don't. No. None
There's
of that.
I got a few more of them before I die, I hope.
No, I won't do it. But Santori, man, like literally, I am so glad it was you, though.
Here's Greg trying to figure out what was going on with his computer.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
there was one time it was like a 45-second break. I was like, that motherfucker is restarting his entire system right now.
Yeah.
Like, oh no. We wrote Greg. Schedule release. The only thing in football I like better than the draft season is the actual season.
Right.
Most people like kind of like the schedule release.
Yeah.
Like
I'm like, whatever.
I will say I lost my shit laughing at the Titans schedule release. All the fans that couldn't guess the team names.
But no,
Boston Bobcats.
Explain everybody the Bobcats, because I'm like, why are they coming out with the Boston Bobcats? Why don't you explain to the people who don't know about it?
Yeah, so more or less they went down to the Tennessee Titans PR team. Went down to the art district in Nashville. Nashville, for those of you that don't know, is a very art-centric city. They do have the Titans. They have like no other sports beyond the Predators, which is a horrible modern-day name for a sports team. But for the most part, it's arts, it's music, it's culinary arts. There's a lot of culture there. Not necessarily sports culture, but a lot of culture. So get out of the art district, and they're going week by week and just showing the team logos to random people on the street. And they get to like week 3, week 4, whatever it is for the Titans game. And this girl's like, the Boston Bengals? I don't know. Oh, please just play it.
Just play it, yeah.
Oh, it's the best thing on the internet.
What is that? St. Louis Rams.
Oh.
Lightning McQueen.
No.
Lightning McQueen!
Oh, that's just the football logo.
The Boston Bobcats. No idea.
Cowboys, yeah. Baltimore Orioles.
This one is the Red Stallions.
49, 69ers, 49er
No. It's a Pirates from the islands of the Caribbean.
Chester Cheeto.
Tigers, North Carolina Tigers. Texas. That's the Cowboys. Texas. Got that. Yeah.
Atlanta. Florida. Florida Dolphins.
Oh, Texans. Eagles. Pittsburgh. Who's that? Bulls? Who? Patriots? That's the Patriots logo. That it actually does not exist. That is Nashville, Tennessee.
Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans. Woo!
Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee
Titans.
Tennessee Titans. Wait, good job. Yeah. Awesome.
Chester Cheeto.
Eagles. From Pittsburgh?
I like the one that says Atlanta, Florida Dolphins. They put like every Atlanta, 49ers, 69ers. Where was your head at? Stars.
Hey, the Cowboys.
Oh,
It
goodness.
actually doesn't exist. You know, every fan of a rivaling AFC South team that saw someone say that Jacksonville doesn't exist lost their shit laughing.
Yes. Oh, had to. Doesn't actually exist. Oh, well, I think that's probably a good place to stop. What do you guys think?
I'm just so happy.
I can smell my shoes. So yeah,
I'm
I'm tired of
so
sitting
happy.
here.
Okay, yeah.
Santori, I should be pissed at you, but I am just so happy that it was you the entire time.
I'm kind of hoping it just glitches now, and I can just be like, "It wasn't me." That's just the football logo.
Yeah,
This is the one. I'm just so happy it was just you.
Well, for Greg Luther, he's Santori Miles.
You pointed the
I'm
wrong
Cincy
direction.
Jones.
You
Over there.
went. You go. He's Santori Miles.
I was trying to channel my inner Santori talking about Birmingham today.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was trying to do. For Greg Luther, this is Santori Miles. I'm Cincy James wearing a three-way city stuff. Hooday!
Slurp your noodles.
And right into the stretch. Looking back and throws up the middle. Rose is on his way around. Picked up by Otis.
Here comes the ready or not.